Welcome back to Your Critter Training. In this segment, I want to talk about spiders. As you know, there's a number of different kinds of spiders. Who knows how many species there are? But really, there's only about 4 different kinds of spiders that you and I need to be concerned about as home inspectors and realtors. And we're going to go over those in this segment. So we've got the black widow, the funnel web, the hobo, and the recluse. Those are the ones we're going to talk about in this segment. Pretty much anything behind that is going to be much less of an issue and not necessarily a health and safety problem. Now, a number of us, including myself, are just not spider fans, and if we see 1 or 20 in our home, we're not going to be happy. But there is a much higher priority on getting the nasty, the poisonous spiders out of the house. We all know that the black widow prefers to be in damp environments, and you're going to find that in areas more where you've got maybe a farm environment, or whether you've got an area that used to be a field and now it's been residential, and so there's going to be that transition where the spiders used to live and now people do, and spiders still want to live there, and you've got that sort of thing going. I do find a lot more black widows in newer environments, especially when you start getting into places like irrigation valve boxes. You just don't stick your hand down there blindly before you check it out carefully, and in many cases much better off doing so with a thick glove before you start pushing your hand down there to turn valves. That's just crazy, because the black widow bite is a nasty one and it will send you to the hospital. These particular bites that from these 4 spiders that we're talking about, these are not the ones that are just going to swell up a little bit and be basically like a mosquito bite. These are the ones that they may or may not kill you, but if they don't kill you, they might make you wish you were dead. It's that sort of a bite that we're talking about. So the black widow is certainly one of those, and the black widow, of course, is very easily identified. And I would just have you be aware, if you happen to be pushing through the brush, maybe you've got bushes in the front of the house, that sort of thing, or I've been in homes where they have unfinished backyards where the weeds are 3 feet high. If you're pushing through those sorts of areas, I'd like you to be aware that there can be spiders that are not happy that you're there, and you might get bitten. Maybe if you're in an area stomping around through ivy on the ground or whatever sort of ground cover, especially if you're maybe stomping around using open-toed shoes, maybe flip-flops or whatever, you are putting yourself at risk of being bitten and spending, some time in the hospital. Besides the black widow, we've got the funnel web spider. Now, this is a spider that it's also known as the grass spider. He usually builds his web to kind of look like a tornado or a funnel, if you will. And I see them most in basements. They are poor climbers. And that's the difference between a funnel web and a wolf spider. Wolf spider is not really that much of a problem, and the wolf spider can climb. So if you basically see a spider that looks like it might be the funnel web, but it's on the wall of the 2nd story, either you don't have a funnel web and it's a wolf, which is less of a problem, or if it is a funnel web, you've got a huge infestation and you need to take action immediately, because normally your funnel web spiders are going to be in the basement down on lower levels, because they are, like I say, poor climbers. The funnel web is very athletic, and it's got a vicious bite. You'll have chunks of skin fall off potentially. And so that is not a spider that you want to allow to stay in the house once you're aware of it. Athletic means that it can move quickly. It doesn't mean that it can climb walls, because it can't. That is the domain of the wolf spider. Now you've got the recluse, also known as the brown recluse. That is in particular parts of the United States. You've got the research that I have shows it from Iowa to Nebraska, from New Mexico to Arizona, and you've got pockets elsewhere. So southern Utah, for example, you get the extreme southeast and southwest, and you can have the recluse down there. And then of course all the research will also say that you get pockets here and there. Maybe somebody locked one up in his suitcase and he brought it up to Boise, or to Cincinnati or wherever. So you can have little pockets, but generally it's going to be those states where you have the recluse. Then I mentioned you've got the hobo, which is less dangerous. It can bite, and of course if you've got a baby in a crib and you've got the crib might have a cloth skirt that touches the ground all the way around, and maybe you get 100 hobo spiders that come up and bite that baby's not going to be in good shape. So one of the things we can do as a matter of protecting ourselves is to keep the bed sheets and the skirts off the floor, especially if there's any sort of a spider problem. And then, if you got, for example, the tarantula. My wife and daughter have actually gone to places like those home shows where somebody has a tarantula, and this is this big old tarantula that fills your palm, and they'll sit there and hold that tarantula, and one person after another will do that all show long. I feel bad for the tarantulas because he's got 100 people holding him that day, and then the next day comes and it happens again. But the other spiders are much less of an issue, and yes, if you surprise them, or if you're bugging them, or if you're stomping through their home, they will bite. Usually it's a defensive bite, and it's going to be much less of an issue than, for example, if you get a black widow bite. In my bucket of stories, I do know a guy. I was doing an inspection for him, and he was puttering around the house before I did the inspection. He was actually the seller, putting things together, and he said he was moving wood, etc. And part of what he was doing is he got bit on the knee by a black widow. And he knew it at the time, but he had things to do, so he just kept doing what he needed to do. And I was able to talk to him after the fact. It was about a week after the fact. And he told me that he had big trouble on his knee and that he hospitalized himself later. And, there was some serious question as to whether he was going to lose his leg or not. So this is the level of respect you've got to pay to these three spiders, because the hobo, like I say, is less dangerous. Next segment, we're going to talk about how to protect ourselves from spiders and how to recognize what spiders mean as far as related issues.